just to celebrate and to launch Clare's Stained Glass Archive. This has been Trojan work carried out by John Glynn over the last 5 years. John has researched and documented and photographed over 1,000 images of stained glass throughout County Clare. Not only that, but he has described the buildings, the artists, the historical background, and a lot of other information, including the stories behind each image. So this is truly a mammoth task and a major piece of work. And it's the first time that we've had a county-wide survey of stained glass in Ireland. This archive is now publicly available and accessible online for all. The archive is available on clareheritage.org, part of the ICANN website. And ICANN is Ireland's digital community archive, established in 2009. It has been developed by the National Museum of Ireland in association with participating local authorities, including Clare County Council, and it is supported by the Heritage Council and Creative Ireland. To date in Clare, we have 7 communities who are part of ICANN, and on the ICANN portal, each of the communities in Clare have their own website in which they hold their own archives and which they can showcase their own heritage, and including the groups in Clare are Shannon Archaeological Historical Society, Clarecastle and Ballier Heritage and Wildlife Group, Scattery Island, Kilkee, Clonlara, Kilkeedy, Rowan and Dysart heritage groups. And we have more groups wanting to join the archive. So we're very delighted with that. I'm now, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to David Caron. David is an academic, a researcher and an author, and he's an expert in stained glass windows and is at the forefront in Ireland in promoting Irish stained glass. David has published Dublin's Stained Glass, a guide to the finest 20th century windows. His most recent book in 2023 is Michael Healy, 1873 to 1941, on Tourglan Stained Glass. So we're delighted to have Michael here tonight to officially launch the Clare Stained Glass Archive. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much, Congella. I hope everybody can hear me now. We switched over to me, I think. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be asked to launch John Glynn's Stained Glass Archive that both documents and celebrates Clare's stained glass heritage. Just to let you know, this bit of the launch will take about 15 minutes or so. I've had an interest in documenting windows by Irish stained glass artists dating back to 1988 or even before. And I was in that year, I was one of the 3 compilers of the original Gazetteer of Irish Stained Glass. And in 2021, myself and 8 compilers brought out a revised and expanded edition of the Gazetteers. And the big shame, of course, or the big pity was that we didn't know John Glynn at that point, because he would have been a great and invaluable addition to the team. So both editions of the Gazetteer were printed publications. And as much as I like books, we must acknowledge that we live in an increasingly digital world where so much is accessed online. And so it makes complete sense that John's initiative is within the digital realm. This is not only because people can access it on the move, on their phones or on laptops, but also as new information may come to light, there is the relative ease of being able to add it to his archive. There are so many aspects of John's archive that are commendable. I'm going to list some relatively small things to begin with, like including the Eircode that facilitates people to get to the locations, an external photograph of each building, usually a church, that not only helps us confirm the location, but provides a visual introduction to the sort of building that the stained glass is located in. It's worth remembering that many of the stained glass artists would have visited these churches in the first instance, not only to measure the window opening, but also to get a sense of the architecture, the aspect, north, south, east and west, the height the window would be from the ground. Um, and they would do all of this before making a small scale sketch design to present to the patron or the client. We know that Harry Clarke used to cycle around Ireland, meeting parish priests and the like, and note his observations of where the windows would be erected, even scribbling in his diary if there were adjacent trees that would affect the amount of light coming in, penetrating any given window. Um, a big advantage that John has over others, including myself, is that he's an accomplished photographer. So he has looked after this aspect of the project as well as the research aspect. I also like the fact that there is a generous use of footnotes, which is a legacy for future researchers who want to be able to trace back to source where various items of information emanated from. On the subject of researching stained glass, John, myself, and those in our small informal network of stained glass researchers in Ireland, I know several of them are tuned in this evening, are acutely aware of how challenging it can be. Of all the churches that John features in his website, the vast majority are Catholic, with only, I think, 11 either current or former Church of Ireland churches. And at this point, I think it's important to salute Glynn, the amazing Church of Ireland website that lists all the pictorial stained glass windows in Church of Ireland churches on the island of Ireland. In respect of Catholic churches, in my experience, very few hold archival material relating to stained glass, their stained glass, and likewise diocesan offices. So where you might expect some information to be held by the owners, custodians of these works of art, there is sadly none. An additional challenge is that more often than not, stained glass windows are not signed. So this compels the researcher to look elsewhere. Local newspapers can be a rich source, for instance, as are the various national archives. So with any single location of the 140 in John's archive, you're probably looking at the outcome of many hours, possibly many days, or even some weeks' work to uncover what he could about who created the windows and the dates they were made and other related information. It's worth noting that John's interest in stained glass was ignited by curiosity about the beautiful stained glass windows in his local church and decided to embark on a bit of investigation. The initial outcome of his research led him to give an online talk to the local historical society, which I remember tuning into. This is, I think, during the COVID period. And now, several years down the line, we are all the beneficiaries of his extensive research. In a wider sense, looking to the future, I think to a significant degree, it will be local people who play a key role in safeguarding our national holding of stained glass. We should remember that churches are essentially community buildings, albeit funded by and built for a specific denomination, with diminishing numbers who are drawn to religious life and lower attendances at weekly masses and services. Local people may be called to play a larger role in determining the future of these buildings, which, excuse me while I turn over the page, which are usually the finest architectural structure in any parish, village or town. It's worth remembering that essentially all stained glass was paid for by local people, our antecedents, who either individually covered the cost of memorial windows or contributed through sodalities, general collections, to erect windows that would beautify their churches and glorify God. Churches and the stained glass windows within are key elements of every village and town's built environment and local heritage. So you might ask, what is so special about Irish stained glass and what is so special about County Clare stained glass? To answer the first question first, during the 20th century, particularly in the first half, Ireland developed an international reputation for stained glass completely out of proportion to the size of our small island. And it wasn't just one or two individual artists. It was an entire school of stained glass, with Harry Clarke as its most famous proponent. And this school consistently produced windows of the highest standard in terms of artistry, craftsmanship, and originality. And they were greatly sought internationally and were exported to all over the world. In relation to County Clare, there are several aspects of the county's stained glass holding that merit highlighting. Firstly, unique among all the counties on the island, it is the best collection of medieval stained glass, and this is found in Bunratty Castle. Unfortunately, any medieval glass that Ireland had in situ in churches and cathedrals was destroyed. Mainly it appeared during the Cromwellian period, and all that is left are documented accounts and occasionally shards of glass that are uncovered in archaeological digs. Bunratty has nearly 100 small panels, mostly heraldic in nature and originating from England and from the continent, and they date from the 14th century onwards. Harry Clarke in his studio and his father's studio too are well represented in County Clare. Particular churches to visit are John Glynn's local church of St. Senan's in Kilrush, which has several very fine windows that clearly show Harry Clarke's imprint, and also a three-light crucifixion window behind the altar that was made at Clarke's studio after he had died. There's a lovely window designed by Harry Clarke in St. Flannan's Catholic Church in Killaloe, which, as its principal scene, depicts the presentation in the temple. And when I look at it, it makes me smile because Mary, Joseph, and Simeon, they all seem kind of inexplicably irritated for whatever reason. The Catholic Church in Scariff has 4 fine windows that were designed by Richard King of Harry Clarke Studios and paid for by a local man who made good in America. Just one of several examples of emigrants commissioning windows in memory of deceased family members back home. Richard King was Clarke's most talented assistant, and these were made at a pivotal time for the studio. The first 2 were ordered while Harry Clarke was still alive, though suffering from terminal tuberculosis and spending protracted periods in a Swiss sanatorium. And the second 2 were ordered after he died, aged only 41, in 1931. These windows show how artists like Richard King, who had been personally trained by Harry Clarke, continued his legacy, yet also began to introduce subtle stylistic changes, which accelerated over the years. I'd also like to note a native of Ennis, the artist Catherine O'Brien, who played a significant role in An Tóir Glynn, or the Tower of Glass studio in Dublin, that was a rival of Clarke's. It was founded by the Dublin painter Sarah Purser in 1903, and Catherine O'Brien, or Kitty, as I think she preferred to be known, began as a young recruit the same year. In addition to her artistic talent, she was blessed with both longevity and determination. After all the other artists at the studio, and the number was always about half a dozen, had either retired or passed on, she continued on. And even when An Tóir Glynn was burnt to the ground in 1958, she decided to rebuild, which she did. So ultimately, she achieved a near 6-decade career as a stained glass artist, all of it working at An Tóir Glynn. In her later years, in her 70s, she designed and made windows in memory of her 3 sisters for St. Columba's Church of Ireland in Ennis. So let's now move on to the Vatican II era and the decades that followed, as I'd like to draw attention to some terrific windows in Clare that were made at Murphy Devitt Studios, which, along with Abbey Stained Glass Studios, both of Dublin, were the 2 most significant studios from roughly the 1960s onwards. By this time, it was less about commissioning individual memorial windows and more about working hand in hand with architects and creating a comprehensive vision for a church that would be modern, welcoming, and whose design would aim to forge a closer relationship between the celebrant and the congregation. Murphy Devitt's chief artist was Johnny Murphy, though he also had a very strong design sensibility. And in essence, I think all stained glass is a combination of art, design, and craft in different proportions, depending on the individual artist and the commission that was in hand. Murphy Devitt are well represented in the county, but I limit myself to 4 examples that will convey the range and versatility of the studio. The Church of Little Senan, I love that name, at Monmore has a collection of delightful windows that were designed by Johnny Murphy and made in 1960. As one enters the porch, one is greeted by a cheerful, bright window featuring all 12 tiny apostles, painted in a modern manner, though as if inspired by early Irish stone carvings. In the nave windows, local saints are honoured: Senan, Imi, Flannan, Canara, and Lua. And in the gallery, there's a charming three-light window that was inspired by Pádraig Pearse's story, Eircode, and that must be completely unique in Ireland. This church is a little gem, and although I'm sad to learn that Mass is no longer celebrated there, I was delighted to hear that a group, the Friends of Monmore Chapel, has been established to preserve and maintain it, and the stained glass contained within, and well done to all those for this excellent local initiative. In most churches that were built in the 19th century and early 20th century, the most impressive window was the east window behind the altar, whereas in the period of Vatican II and the decades afterwards, the sanctuary was often stripped back to its essentials, so there was no visual distraction from the celebrant, and instead the focus of stained glass was on the west window, often over the door, sometimes an entire gable wall, as in Kilkee's Catholic Church. It has a spectacular, monumental window by Murphy Devitt Studios, created in 1963, that principally features Christ's crucifixion and scenes from his life. It's a real stunning window. Remaining on the Clare coast, for many, when they hear the name of Doonbeg, they think of a golf course and its famous owner. But I think of the stunning abstract stained glass windows made in 1976 by Murphy Devitt for the Catholic Church there. Comprising many vertical windows and sort of a wraparound clear story window, they feature a spectrum of colour while rounded organic shapes maintain sort of a gentle rhythm throughout. It's an example of how transformative stained glass can be, how it can change a fairly basic internal space and make it conducive to prayer and to spiritual reflection. When the sun shines through those windows, it's a sight to behold as the rainbow of colours reflects off the polished wooden pews. 3 years later, in 1979, Murphy Devitt Studios, specifically Johnny Murphy and Michael Timlin, a former student of his at NCAD, designed and made a remarkable wall of glass for Our Lady of the Wayside Catholic Church at Lizzie Casey. Remarkable in that, although it is entirely figurative, on an initial viewing, there does not appear to be any religious imagery, and instead it depicts what has been described as everyday life. The entire wall of glass comprises a single undulating landscape through which people roam, cycle their bicycles, fish, collect rocks in a wheelbarrow, and build a dry stone wall, while herds of cattle and sheep graze. But if one looks a little closer, a dolmen is visible near the horizon. Or is it actually a dolmen, or the side elevation of Our Lady of Wayside Church, whose design was inspired by a dolmen? It's difficult to tell. And below it, a spectral figure in pale blue walks through the landscape, one child at his side with two more approaching him. And above his head, there is an abstract dove, the Holy Spirit, to signify that the stranger is actually Christ walking amongst us. I realise that I'm now close to exceeding my time limit, but I want to finally mention our two most distinguished senior Irish stained glass artists, Phyllis Burke and George Walsh, who are both represented in County Clare. Many of you will have admired George's beautiful circular window titled Our Lady of the Fertile Rock that features on both tonight's promotional flyer and prominently on John's website, and I cannot think of a better choice. It encapsulates energy, vitality, and references to its location at New Quay, which is typical of the way George regularly anchors his windows in the places that they were created for. And this emphasises how much his windows, and those by other Irish artists, are very much bespoke works of art made for specific locations. So I'll now pass you over to John, and in doing so, I'd like to extend a hearty congratulations to him on his terrific achievement and hope that his inspiring initiative might encourage other counties around Ireland to follow in his footsteps and create a similar resource. Well done, John.
Thank you very much, David. Um, that was wonderful. And it's now launched.
It's now launched.
Thank you very much. So I'll go and share my screen. I think, would that be correct?
Yes, John, you can just go down there to the bottom and it's share screen. Perfect.
We need to go from the beginning. There we go. Are we all good? Okay. Listen, thank you very much, David. That was a wonderful introduction, and you've done a superb job in giving it context to the stained glass in Ireland and in County Clare. And thank you so much for your warm words and your encouragement actually over the last 5 years. I remember the first time I spoke with you on the phone, I was sharing the St. Bridget and the Harry Clark stained glass windows, and I'll never forget the description that you described on the telephone of the Harry Clark stained glass windows, and I knew that we had something special. But I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening who are online, and a special shout out to all the people who are in Chockheol and Kilrush. This has been live broadcast to a number of people in Kilrush before Paul Gleason's talk at the Kilrushian Historical Society tonight. A special thank you to Congella McGuire. We wouldn't be here tonight only for Congella because it was her encouragement that I remember having a conversation with her a couple of years ago saying I had done some work in stained glass, and she encouraged me all the way. And she encouraged me to apply for a grant from the Heritage Council, which wasn't successful, but this ICANN venture is very successful. And you can see at the bottom of the screen here, you've got ICANN, which is the Irish Community Archive Network. I really want to thank Lorna Elms, who's the Development Officer. She's been a great support. Hassan Daba, who's been the IT person who's given me training and IT support 24/7. And tonight, we've got Cara May O'Mahony, who's been fantastic in getting the whole thing set up and setting up the whole thing. So thank you very much to ICANN. And for all the other 31 counties in Ireland, I mean, this is for you. I just want to share with you how this happened, and I want to encourage other people to do something similar. And ICANN is the way to go. Thanks also to support from the Museum of Ireland and the Heritage Council, and to Clare County Council for doing a superb job in the press department. So the programme for my presentation is I want to explain what is Clare's stained glass archive. Then I'm going to do a quick visit into the website, just to encourage you to get in there and get the juices flowing so that you can use this website now on your phone or on your iPad or on your computer. David has done a wonderful job in describing some of the notable studios and artists in County Clare, and I'll give you some images of that. And then finally, just kind of, where do we go from here? And we'll finish up with some questions and answers at the end. So we'll hold the questions and answers till the very end. We have about 10, 15 minutes there at the end. So all good? So Congella said, tell me a little bit about who I am. So my name is John Glynn. I was born in Kilrush in County Clare. I'm a researcher. I studied food science. I'm not an artist at all. I studied food science in University College Cork, graduated in 1981, and spent a career in research and development in the food industry. Nothing at all to do with stained glass. 5 years ago, I retired, and I've been, as David said earlier on, I began investigating the stained glass in my local St. Synon's church. And at that time, luckily, Trinity College in Dublin digitised their records from the Harry Clark studios. And I had the time and the interest to study the letter books, the order books, the correspondence the designs, and I was able to pull together the evidence to show that Harry Clark and Walter Clark had a lot of communication with our Father McInerney. So, so I continued on this research, and as I said, I remember sharing some of the exciting work with David in those early days. I got to visit Nival in Dublin, which is the in NCAD, and carried out some more research into early studios. And you can see here that the produce of that was I produced this brochure, which is up here, which is it's available for free and for nothing in the church in Kilrush. So it's a guide to the church in Kilrush, which I produced in June of 2023. And like David said, I gave a talk, which is on the Kilrushan District Historical Society YouTube channel on the Harry Clark stained glass windows in January of 2023. So I'm also a photographer, and I like to share what I do and how I take the photographs. So very briefly, I have good cameras. I have a Fuji X-T4, and a recent acquisition is a Nikon Z9, which has got a big sensor, which is important if you want to take good quality photographs. Very important to have a tripod, because I have a shaky hand, and you need to have the tripod for in these environments. I go for ISO 100 or thereabouts, which is the highest quality you can get really in a camera. Typical aperture would be f11. I go for a longer exposure so I can capture all the light that's available, because the lighting conditions can be poor. And I would have a 10-second self timer, so if there's no camera shake. Typically, I would have a 24 to 700mm lens, and I think, like I had an exchange of emails recently with Michael Early, please turn off the lights internally, because you want to get the optimum amount of light coming in. So that's about me. So I think I did a lot of work. I mean, this isn't my archive. I have a team of people. This wouldn't have happened. It's not because of me. It's because of all the people I met in the last 5 years. So I did comprehensive reviews of publications on the churches, schools, castles within the county to determine where to look. I had a little spreadsheet of the locations, and I had a little list of what places need to be visited in County Clare. I collaborated with the local priests, with community members, the local historians, and this would not exist without a whole lot of people. So I'm really grateful. So I want to thank really all the nuns, priests, vicars, monks, bishops, artists, authors, librarians, archivists, local historians, caretakers, sacristans, stained glass specialists, hospital administrators, academics, school principals, heritage officers. I could go on. Custodians, photographers, IT professionals, community hall managers, property owners, tourist managers, educators, press managers. You're all, well, not all of you, but there's a good number of you up there. And I'm not going to read all of them. Maybe just mention my wife, Bernadette Glynn. She's in there in the middle of all that. This wouldn't have happened without her. And on the photography side, so I'm going to mention some people maybe as we're passing through, but this is a team of people from the communities, from churches, from libraries. It's just been a pleasure meeting you, and this would not have happened without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. On the photography side, I just want to mention my late brother Charles. He provided a photograph of a house in Edenvale, which was useful, and his son Charlie also, and there's also local photographers, David McMahon. So thank you very much. So moving on, the title is Clare's Stained Glass Archive. Okay, let's break that down. What is Clare's Stained Glass Archive? This is a screenshot from the website. And the blue dots are the individual churches. You can see can you see my little mouse floating around? Yeah. So this is Cross down in West Clare. This is Newquay up in North Clare. Whitegate is over here. It's about 90-minute drive from Kilbaha to Whitegate, and it's about 80-minute drive from Fenor down to Partine. And I'm based in Kilrush in County Clare. And over the last couple of years, I've been going around to all these sites at least once, if not twice. The red ones are clusters. So there's 2 there in that particular area. There's 16 in Ennis. There's 5 in Kilrush. So just to give you an idea, this is a representation of 140 sites in County Clare that have been documented. All the windows, all the stained glass windows, all the buildings have been documented for County Clare. This literally puts County Clare on the map, or stained glass on the map. So it's Clare. I'm passionate about County Clare, and we've got the Wild Atlantic Way here on the west coast. We've got the Shannon Estuary on this side, and we have Lough Derg and the Shannon River. We are surrounded by water practically. And I remember seeing one documentary about Willie Early's stained glass windows, about the light in Kilrush, how wonderful the light is for stained glass windows that Willie Early was putting in. I put it to you that Clare is probably the brightest county in Ireland. It's probably got the best light, because not only is it coming from up, but it's coming from below, and we are surrounded by it. So it's illuminating. We have a very varied landscape. We've got the Burn, we've got the Wide Atlantic Way, we've got a rich tradition in music, Peggy Crotty, Willie Clancy, Noel Hill. We have a tradition of music, dance, folklore and storytelling. We've got fantastic historical sites. We've got ancient ring forts, medieval abbeys, castles, holy wells and Killeenies. They're all documented on the ICANN website. But we also have a strong legacy in stained glass windows that spans 7 centuries. Now, I did a little squiggle here in this map, which isn't on the official link, because Clare also has its challenges in that it's, for the Catholic Church, it's divided in 3 dioceses, which means that there are 3 archives that you have to go to research. So most of the county is covered by Killaloe, which is from Loophead all the way over to Tipperary. Kilfenor is part of the Galway diocese, and so it's separate from the Killaloe diocese. And there's a little bit of Clare that's been taken by Limerick down here, like Partine and Meelick and those areas. So there are 3 different administrative sections. For the Church of Ireland, it's very straightforward. It's all the one. But for the Catholic community, it's separate. And we also have a Buddhist community near 6 Mile Bridge. So I just want to cover all religions. So we've covered Catholic, Church of Ireland and Buddhist in this archive. So that's County Clare. I could go on, but I won't. This is about stained glass. What's stained glass? Well, stained glass is glass that's been coloured, painted or textured and then assembled into images or decorative patterns traditionally held together by strips of lead. It's both, like David eloquently said earlier on, it's both an art form and a craft. It combines design, storytelling and technical skill. So here you've got the signature of Phyllis Burke that David mentioned earlier on. This is up in Corofin, and here you can see that the glass has been coloured, but she's painted. This is just a small section on her signature here. This here is by Fiona O'Dwyer in 2001. It's in the Ennis Museum, and it's a beautiful piece called Ribbons of Glass, which is based on St. Bridget's well in County up in North Clare. And the last window here is just coloured glass in a beautiful little church in Clonlara, Kilton and Lea. which was a former Church of Ireland one, and now it's gone into new ownership. So that kind of, I could go into how we add the color into glass. There's minerals and metal oxides added to glass during the glass making process to change the color of the glass to give you this beautiful effect over here. So that's what stained glass is. So when it's not just painted, it's also colored. So in the last word in the title is archive. And an archive is a carefully organized, I have to change this here now. Sorry, no. So it's a carefully organized collection of records, documents, images, or objects that are preserved because they have a long-term historical, cultural, artistic, or informational value. That's what an archive is, and thankfully we now have one. I was very privileged to become a student last year with my sister Jane. We both took on a wonderful course on archive, on how to create archives. And my mission statement that last year was, and the word that I chose was enlightening as a methodology, enlightening as an approach to process or process that aims to give information or understanding to the subject of stained glass windows in County Clare. It involves gathering information, educating and informing. The dissemination of the research by a user-friendly and interactive website with mapping will enlighten and illuminate the archive for all to enjoy. That's what I wrote a year ago, and thankfully tonight that has been achieved. Last week, I got a contact from Tricia Cunningham, who's a stained glass artist based in Bray. And in 2000, she did a beautiful piece of work in the Sunyata Buddhist Center. And I was with the monk there, a young monk, Scott, and he shared, I asked him, what's this window about? And he said, it's actually entitled Enlightenment, which is the opening of the lotus flower from the darkness. And we are in Lent, and we've had a bad 40 days, and we're coming into the brightness from the darkness and all the troubles, and then it's opening up to be, so it's enlightenment. And I shared my word with him, and there was a kind of a synergy there. So look at, I don't want to get too carried away, but basically that's Clare's stained glass archive. So what does it contain? Well, the archive contains over 1,400 photographs. There's 140 locations, like I said earlier on. There's research with footnotes, as David said earlier on. There's a context, a little bit of context. There's historical notes, there's artist information, and there's site details. Now, there are, you can see a breakdown there of the number of, so there's the majority of them, there's 109 Catholic churches, 11 Church of Ireland or former Church of Ireland churches, a Buddhist centre. We've got 3 castles. We've got Bunratty, Naphogue and Dromoland. We've got a number of hospitals and that have got chapels or day centres. Some fine houses that we'll visit. Convents, there are 5 of them, and some of them are beautiful with stained glass windows in them. And then even some schools. Some have some modern stained glass windows, others have older ones. Can you see? You can't see me right. So what the archive contains are things like the description on the building name, the address, the Eircode, the GPS coordinates, so you can put them into your phone and get there. There's an actual map for where it is. Where we have the information, we put in where it was built, when it was modified, who the architect was, because that can be useful. If it's a parish, diocese, townland, religion if relevant, a building description, protected structure description, landed estates record if it exists, and then an image of the building. So when you get there, you know what it is. Then when it comes to the stained glass window, they don't have titles, so sometimes you have to make them up, or sometimes there are titles and it's obvious, but The location within the building is important. Who the artist is, who the studio is, dates if we have them. We don't always have them. We have to get those from archives. I take great pride in the fact that the inscriptions are all documented. Not everybody does that. So there's a rich archive of people's names, who the donors were, and that's a useful archive for who's it in memory of. The donor details, the studio order details, and then an image of the window. And in some cases they're zoomable. No, I can't see you, but I presume everything's going okay. So the methodology. So basically, how did I go about this? So it basically is a site. In researching this, I had to visit the site. So I had to identify where the sites were, locate them, photograph them. And when I'd arrive at a site, I wouldn't know what to expect. It could be, the place could be locked, or I could have a wonderful surprise. And I've had both. I've gone to places where I couldn't get in, and I might have to come back again on when there was a mass, or when it was convenient, or get someone to get a key. So not all places are accessible. The same applies for archives. You don't know what you're going to get in an archive. You might get nothing, or you might get a lot. Then I would document what I'd find. I've got notebooks, I've got photographs. I'd take my camera out and photograph what I could of the site, or the archive. And then I tried to put together a record of those of the sites. And then on the archive, I've spent a number of days, if not weeks, in archives. And these are a number of the archives here on the right-hand side. So the Diocese of Killaloe in Ennis, I've spent days in there. I've been in the Diocese of Galway. I didn't go to Limerick. I didn't need to, because I think I've covered most of it. I spent a lot of time in Trinity looking at the research collections for the Harry Clarke Studios. Michael Talty knows me there in the Clare Studies Centre, and Peter Byrne before that. Lots of information about the local churches, very useful information. Spent a lot of time in Nival, National College of Art and Design, very useful for Early and Company, and Phyllis Burke, and Murphy Devitt. Marie Lynch in the Centre of Study for Irish Art and National Gallery, very useful for a whole lot of ones, but especially the James Watson archive, and James Watson of Youghal. And I've spent days looking at that, and it's been great fun. National Library Archives, spent time with Susan Hood up in the representative church body of the Church of Ireland, got comprehensive records of the Church of Ireland ones. And David mentioned David Lawrence, who did Trojan work with the Church of Ireland, with the Glynn website. It's a wonderful, wonderful legacy, and may he rest in peace. And then press cuttings. You can do an awful lot of research by looking at the British National Library and that. Okay, so how are we done on time? Okay. So accessing the archive. So the archive, you can go on your phone, you can just put in the words Clare Stained Glass or Stained Glass Archive, and you'll get there, or you can click in the link. So I'm going to go and visit the website now. So I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to go in and share again. And I'm going to try and find, where is it? It's this one here, I think. Yeah, okay. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yes, John, I can see
Excellent.
that.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So this when you put in Clare Stained, this is what the website looks like. You land at the Clare's. It's part of the Congella's Clare Heritage website. So you hear County Clare Heritage Office. we're under places, so Clare Stained Glass Archives is here. This is the George Walsh stained glass window from New Quay, which we've been using for all our promotions. It's a superb piece. And so if you scroll down here, it gives a little bit about what the website is, or what the archive is. We've got Harry Clark Stained Glass Studios, Ontour Glynn, Erling Company, Watsons of Youghal, and so on. And it's going to be launched tonight. The images are mine, and they're subject to copyright, but you can share them, but you have to attribute me if you're going to use it, but you can't use them for commercial purposes. That's what all that there is about. And then here is the map. So this is County Clare out here on the west coast of Ireland. We've some stained glass windows that went from Kilrush over to Gloucestershire, but that's a story for another day. So if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see here the website or the map you saw earlier on. So you got Cross down here, sorry, Kilbaha. And you've got in Kilrush here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sites, and there's people here in Grace Street tonight now, and I'll go back out again. So I would like to go to some of the sites. So now I will have time later on. What time we were 10 to 8. Okay, hard to know where to go. I'll exit out here. So that's let's go where we'll go to Munmore. Here's Munmore outside Kilrush. David mentioned it earlier on. So this, just to give you an idea of what it's like, this is Munmore Little St. Catholic Church. It's just a couple of miles outside of Kilrush. This is the type of information. So you've got a picture of the church itself, Little St. Catholic Church, the Eircode, when it was built in 1895. It's in the parish of Kilrush. The builder was John Ronan from Vandeleur Street in Kilrush. It's one of 2 churches featured in the Kilrush Parish website, but it's deconsecrated at the moment, and we've got the Friends of Munmore Chapel have been established. You can see the footnotes there that will bring you to the bottom, so to verify where the information came from. And then the stained glass windows. This is St. Canara. She's my favourite saint in West Clare. We have lots of them, but there she is. If I zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see the full picture. So that's St. Canara. And then, so all the windows that David spoke about. So I'm going to go down here to the very bottom. Sorry, no, don't get seasick. Okay. I want to zoom in again. So here are the references that I've talked about. So everything is referenced. So you can click on those yourself, and then they're all live. But I just want to get into the images here. So this is what you can do in the photo gallery. You can go into each individual image of the Murphy Devitt windows. These are every single window is covered here. This is part of the Isagon window that David spoke about earlier on, the Murphy Devitt window. This is the 12 Apostles that David spoke about, which is, and you can zoom in on St. John and St. Matthew. That's St. Matthew there. So it's a very functional website. This is Isagon on top. You can see at the bottom layer here, you've got the 12 Apostles, and on the upper layer, you've got Isagon with Matthias and the children. Very unique stained glass window. That's Isagon, close-up of Isagon, and you can go right in and see the detail of the butterflies. So it's got wonderful functionality. So now, I think on the basis of time, I need to kind of keep moving on here. So so we can search by so you can go in here. There's keywords so if I go into this is another way, like Ballyvaughan here, for example. There are sorry, no, I'll just Ballyvaughan, this is where Manus Walsh has got some beautiful windows with Richard Kimball, who I think is going to be with us tonight. Um, so, and then you've got these keywords at the bottom. So these are keywords, so you can look at where, like Area Stained Glass have got 2 mentions in the archive. The Burn School of Art is mentioned here, Richard Kimball, and like stained glass, there's 129 stained glass sites. We have 15 that have got no stained glass. I deliberately included them because I'm thinking of future proofing. These might be locations where stained glass could go, but I have included churches that haven't got stained glass as well. So it's all inclusive. So I think that gives you a flavour for the stained glass. So I need to go back in and I'm going to stop sharing that, if that's okay, and go back into the presentation to save time. And then I need to go share again, all right?
That's it, John.
Yeah, and then I go in here and share that. Are we back to where we were?
Perfect.
Okay. So look at the final bit now. I'm conscious of the time. The notable. I'm kind of going to fly through this, but I just want to give you some idea of what we've got. We've got the medieval collection in Bunratty. We've got Harry Clark stained glass windows, on tour Glynn, Early Studios, Watson of Viol, and Murphy Devils. And then there are others like Manus, George, Gillian Deeney, Willie Early, Phyllis Burke. So maybe just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Just to give you an idea of the spread of the stained glass windows we have in County Clare, if you want to look at St. John the Baptist, we have in Bunratty a late 14th or early 15th century depiction of St. John the Baptist in Bunratty. We have a 1908 version for Watson's of Youghal in Ballina, Killanoo. We have a early version 1918 in Ballyea, which is the home of Tony Kelly, a very good Clare hurler. In Kilrush here, we've got a Harry Clark version of St. John the Baptist, which is a superb piece. You can see Harry Clark is very clearly in that particular window. And then we've got Willie Early from 1959 in Cross. That just gives you a quick one idea of what the spread is like in County Clare in terms of the spread from medieval to contemporary. These are some of the stained glass windows. Now you can delve in yourself into the stained glass windows yourself at your own time, but in Bunratty, like John Hunt, he served as the advisor to Lord Gort Standish for Lord Gort. He's chief advisor in restoring Bunratty Castle and putting in medieval stained glass windows from the UK. There's no Irish medieval stained glass, but it's mainly from the UK, the Belgium and the Low Countries. So you've got a 16th century coat of arms of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he was alive from 1489 to 1556. The one next to it is there are quarries recording the deaths of two gentlemen, I think. One is dated, he died in 1549, and the other one is 1557. You can see the date 1587 here at the bottom. Now, the person who's done most of the work for the Bunratty is a lady called Heather Gilderdale Scott, and I've been in contact with her. And this particular window here, if this could be connected to Nuremberg, this could be of international significance. This particular window here, it's a late 15th or early 16th century German, possibly Nuremberg, and that is a very significant piece of stained glass. Read more about it in the Bunratty post. So here's some more. This is a German or Swiss panel, but the drummer is dated 1597. I think this window was restored by Richard Kimball, who I think is with us tonight. A couple of years ago, he's done area stained glass, have done some restoration work here. This is an early 17th century painted glass panel of Adam and Eve, which is in one of the bedrooms, and it's based on a Dutch engraving in 1604. This is the badge of King Richard II, and it's dated 1377. So that's the medieval stained glass. Now, I want to do something that's never probably been done before, and this is a chronological order of the Harry Clarke studios in County Clare. So from the very first one, this is St. John the Baptist and St. Jane in Kilrush, St. Bridget in Kilrush, St. Edmund and St. Stephen. They're all in Kilrush. They were the first ones in 1923 and 25. This is Harry Clarke in Currafin in 1927. David mentioned this beautiful window is a presentation of our Lord in the temple with the Annunciation and the flight into Egypt in Killaloe. And this is a beautiful window in Doonbeg, which is 1927-28. I'm sorry I'm flying, but I'm just conscious of the time. These are the 4 sets of windows that David spoke about in Scariff, which were by Richard King after Harry Clarke died, so they're Harry Clarke Studios. And then second last one, this is Harry Clarke had died in 1931. This window was dedicated to Father McInerney, who had a correspondence with Harry Clarke. And this may be a depiction of Harry Clarke himself here. This is the crucifixion window in Kilrush. And we have another crucifixion window in Kildysart. And then the final one of Harry Clarke is in Ennis. This is not Harry Clarke Studios. It's the Sacred Heart with Symbols of Christ's Passion. And then the Calling of St. Andrew up in Kilfarboy up in near Spanish Point. Now, I'm just conscious of time, so I could go to on tour Glynn, which is a beautiful church, which is A.E. Child was the teacher of Harry Clarke, and Harry Clarke took night classes under A.E. Child, and this is a beautiful church. This is a beautiful window, which was initially installed in 6 Mile Bridge and then relocated to Toomgraney, which is the oldest continuously worshipped church in Ireland. Toomgraney is where Brian Boru worshipped. The architect built the place in the 1600 something. So this is the A.E. Child. Now, Michael Healy, I couldn't leave him out because David Caron has done his PhD on Michael Healy and has published a book. This is a modified window that was in Clare Castle, Veronica's Veil, Christ Meets His Mother, and J. Homo, which is in a window there in County Clare, in Clare Castle. And then Kitty or Catherine O'Brien. These are the 2 windows that David spoke about, Mary and Martha, dedicated to her sisters who worshipped in the church in Ennis in Bindon Street. She also was, she did stained glass. She was later manager of Antur Glynn, and she did this beautiful Reardus opus sectile mosaics here at the back of the altar in Ennis. Now, I think I better finish there because I could go on. It is 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, John. That was absolutely amazing. I'm going to have to go through it myself to find out that story behind how windows from Kilrush ended up in Gloucestershire. Big mystery. But we might, for everyone who's hung around so far, thank you so much. For those who want to stay on just for 5 or 10 minutes, I might open up the floor for 5 minutes for some quick questions. John, you have an email as well to the archive. So if anyone wants to follow up, you can pass on those details if anyone has anything they'd like to ask you besides that. But I might ask people to use the raise hand function, and it'll be first come, first serve. And we only have time for a few questions, so apologies. So whoever I see first will I'll get to. So bear with me. I can see we do have some questions coming into the chat. So Yvonne Maloney O'Queeve asked how many of them need to be restored, and is this a very expensive job? Of the windows, I'd say.
Yeah, there's some, I think Congella, one of the benefits out of this project is that there's a greater awareness now of stained glass, and Congella has communicated with me that more people are now contacting her about stained glass and the restoration of it. So that's one of the big benefits of this initiative. Isn't that right, Congella?
Absolutely, yes. The archive has raised awareness of the resource, and people are engaged now, and they are concerned about the conservation of windows. So we have to acknowledge and thank the custodians of the windows who are doing a great job in their conservation and concern for their ongoing repair and replacement at times. So absolutely. They're quite robust, I suppose, in terms of the need for conservation. So and we have a lot of good guidelines in relation to how you might go about the care and conservation of your stained glass windows, and the Heritage Council have produced guidelines in this regard as well. There are grants available, to do work and to conserve your windows also.
Thank you. Donica asks Limerick next, but I suppose that kind of leads to a bigger question. Are you looking to expand the project into other counties? John, I know you're open to working with others.
Well, Donica McGowan has been a wonderful inspiration for me. He's written a wonderful book on the book of Kells. He's been buried in that book for many years, but he came up for fresh air, and I've worked with him in County Limerick. So Limerick is very well documented, and there's no better man than Donica to do Limerick, and I'll help him out if he wants.
Amazing. Anne Reardon has two questions. What was the archive course you did? And secondly, what's next for you, John?
The course is it's run by NCAD, and it's a professional course on creating archives. And the lady who runs it is Sarah Pierce, and she's in NCAD, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And what's next for me? I need to have a little break. I just need to sit back and, I remember when Donica McGowan said a couple of years ago, John Glynn is doing a thing on the stained glass of County Clare, and I didn't really believe him. So I'm delighted to be here tonight and have David to launch it. I can't believe that it's done, because it's been such a long journey. But please, I encourage other people to get out there and start doing what I've done. And hopefully, looking at the references that I have on the website and the websites, it will make it easier for you to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. John, would you like to share that email address that you set up for kind of archive related emails?
Yeah.
If anyone else has any other.
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's Clare stainedglass@outlook.ie.
Perfect. Thank you. I might hand over to you, Congella, so for to close.
Yeah. All I need to do now is just to say that the Stained Glass Archive has already created huge awareness and enlightenment, and of this, I suppose, precious part of our heritage, lesser known part of our heritage. And I'd like to thank John again, and it's been a privilege privilege for me to have had some small role in John's work, Trojan work, and the legacy that he's leaving us. And again, just to thank ICANN, Cara, for your hosting us tonight, and also for Lorna and Hassan's assistance to John as well under ICANN. It's been really fantastic. And I just encourage you all to go online, visit the archive, but also go to the sites. You can see how wonderful and amazing a resource that it is, and a joy to have. And that's all. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for your interest. And I hope we can continue to do such archive and such heritage collections going forward as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to close out the meeting now.
Thank you.